Hello everyone, I'm Professor Plink. I respond to various theological and ideological questions and claims from a rationalistic and naturalistic approach in an effort to give and explain the opposite viewpoint and help to balance the conversation. Before we get into today's video, a special shout out to my most recent super thankers, Chris Mountainay, Piao Meow Noir, James Lamica, Ominozer Zuschauer, Andy H., and David of Oakland. Thank you all for your kind donations. You are the skeptical sausage on my pragmatic pizza. Thank you for helping me to continue to do what I do and combat the cancer that is theistic encroachment into secular society. And if you like what you see in this video and would like to help out the channel, make sure to subscribe and click the bell so you'll always be notified when new content comes out. And of course, like the video and pop in a comment. All of that really does go a long way towards pleasing the YouTube algorithm and keeping my channel motoring along. Now, on to today's video. So we are back with another video from street preacher and professional pedestrian harasser Ray Comfort. It seems old Ray has broken off a channel as an offshoot of his Living Waters channel that is strictly just him going around and ambushing people at random, catching them unprepared and unawares, and bombarding them with his pre-thought-out script of loaded questions. And if they happen to be a non-believer and answer honestly, Ray can often score some rhetorical points against them, as they're obviously going to be unprepared and not all that ready to respond to his verbal barrage of disingenuous questions, interspersed with a hefty helping of heavy-handed evangelizing. So I'll let old Ray ask the questions, as he's doing to this young lady in this video, and I'll come in and provide some answers.
Do you think there's a heaven and a hell?
No. There is no convincing evidence as to the existence of any kind of an afterlife, nor to the existence of any part of the individual that survives after the body's death that could be considered a soul. And even if one were to lean on the law of the conservation of energy, that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only change from one form to another, and try to use that to conclude that the energy that drives our bodies in life survives our death and continues on, that in no way suggests that the biological energy that does drive us retains any part of our minds, personalities, or individuality. No more so than saying the electricity that powers my radio retains the song that the radio was playing when I unplug it. So no, I don't believe in any kind of an afterlife, including heaven or hell.
You got no hope in your death? You're just waiting for death to come?
I have hope for my life, and I have hope for how it might end, but no, I have no hope for something beyond my death, nor do I have any fear either. No fear of hell. And more than that, no fear that countless masses of people who are guilty of nothing more than not being born into the right religion are currently burning in screaming anguish for all eternity. I have to tell you, when I stopped believing in an afterlife, it was like a colossal weight was lifted off of my shoulders, and I stopped dwelling in the chronic depression that I lived with day in and day out, thinking about the incalculable, unjust suffering of my fellow human beings, which plagued my mind every day that I was a Christian. Tell me, Ray, how do you sleep at night thinking about all of those Jews, Muslims, Sikhs, Buddhists, Shintoists, etc., as well as atheists, of course, and even many of your fellow Christians who are just the wrong flavor of Christianity, who your ideology insists are all burning in hell at this very moment and will continue to do so for all of eternity? I bet you sleep like a baby, don't you?
Do you believe in God?
No.
So you're an atheist?
Yes.
Why?
Because despite the fact that I was indoctrinated into Christianity from birth, at a certain point, I decided to put all of my beliefs, political, sociocultural, and religious, through a deep introspective examination to see if they really held water. And when my belief in God didn't hold up to scrutiny, I then went on a 5-year search to find a single good reason to continue to believe in God so that I could maintain my faith. And in all of that time, listening to apologist after apologist, argument after argument, sermon after sermon, and finding all of them fallacious or just nonsensically foolish, I had to conclude that there was no good reason to believe in God. And you were one of the very apologists whose nonsense helped me come to that conclusion, Ray. So I have to thank you for that, at least, for helping make me the atheist that I am today.
If I gave you proof, would you change your mind?
Certainly. I remain open to the possibility that I'm wrong, and am always willing to look into new arguments or rationalizations for a belief in God. That mindset, willing to admit that you may be wrong, is one that I really wish more theists would utilize a bit more. But then, if they did admit that they could be wrong about their belief in God, if they even for a moment seriously entertained the notion that there might not be a God, a whole lot more of them would be atheists before the month was out.
I'll give you pretty good proof, absolute scientific proof, in about 1 minute. Should we give it a try?
Oh, please do. I can't wait to hear what you've come up with here. And I'm sure it's going to be something that I've never heard before in all of my years of listening to apologist nonsense. Something totally scientifically valid and sound, and, as you put it, absolute scientific proof that will leave me a true blue, through and through believer by the end of this video, he said with massive amounts of sarcasm.
Every building is proof of a builder. Every painting is scientific proof of a painter. We know that because a building cannot build itself, it's impossible, and a painting cannot paint itself. Builder could have died 100 years ago, but you know there was a builder because the building's there. Painter could have died 300 years ago, but you know there was a painter because paintings don't paint themselves. Creation is evidence of a creator. Flowers and birds and trees, the sun, the moon, the stars, puppies and kittens, male and female, the seasons, the fruits, all these things are evidence of the genius of God's creative hand.
You serious?
That was your scientific proof? Absolute, undeniable scientific proof? Do you know what the word scientific means, Ray? Are you familiar at all with the scientific method? I mean, from that bout of verbal diarrhea that you just spewed there, I can glean what your observation/question would be. You're observing a building or a painter or the natural world and wondering where they came from. But what's your hypothesis? Other than God created everything, because that's not a testable hypothesis. But if that is the one you're going with, what test have you done on it? What test could you do on it? Where's your data? Where's the methodology of your analysis of that data? Where's your explanation of your conclusion? How in the ever-loving crap can you call a building has a building, so a universe must have a creator, a scientific proof?
I just don't think there's any science to support that, buddy.
If that were scientifically valid, it would hold up to scrutiny. But it doesn't. Because here's a conclusive debunk. Man-made things are, by definition, made by man. So a building or a painting have to have a builder or a painter as they are man-made objects. Natural things have no creator because they're naturally occurring. A puddle forms through natural forces. A fire starts through natural forces. There need not be a puddle maker or a fire maker. The cosmos, the universe, including all of the stars, planets, and life on those planets, is natural, formed through natural processes. There need not be a maker of any of it.
An atheist believes the scientific impossibility that nothing created everything. That's your alternative. That's where you fall back to. If you believe there was no creator, then everything was created by nothing, not from nothing, but by nothing, and that's scientifically impossible.
A Atheists don't necessarily believe that. They can, but it's not an inherent part of atheism. There's multitudes of possibilities of what an atheist could believe about how the cosmos got here. An atheist could believe in a multiverse that births new universes through natural processes. Or a single eternal universe that has always existed for as long as time itself has existed and is just a brute fact of existence. Much as you think God is just a brute fact of existence. An atheist could believe the universe, was belched into existence by eighth-dimensional unicorns. Or an atheist could take no position on the matter whatsoever, say they have no idea how the universe started, how existence came into being, or even if there was a start to it, but they simply don't subscribe to the idea of a creator God behind it. Not believing in one idea does not necessitate the adherence to another specific idea in its place. You don't get to tell atheists what they have to believe just because they don't believe in your ideology. And then B, your claim that something coming from nothing is a scientific impossibility? Seriously, Ray, read a mother-flipping book. This is not new. We've known about this for a while now. But, of course, it's a cornerstone of your attempt at arguments that something can't come from nothing, and that atheists must believe that something comes from nothing. So to even entertain the idea that you might be wrong about either of those statements is devastating to your entire line of thinking and questioning of people. So, of course, you won't even consider that you might be wrong, when you very clearly, provably are. See what I was talking about before about wishing apologists would take up the whole I might be wrong mindset? If he adopted that mindset, his entire ministry would have to shut down overnight. Well, that is, it would have to if he were intellectually honest and honorable.
Don't hold your breath, kid.
Nothing cannot create anything because it's nothing. That's why the Bible says the fool has said in his heart there's no God.
Who created God?
You know, there are certain things in life that are very sure, and that is when an atheist gets proof of God's existence, they default to that question, who created God?
I have never asked that question of a theist. Well, actually, that's not true. When I was 10, I remember that question did occur to me, and I asked my priest that after church one day. His answer to me was, God just was. He always existed. Or basically that God was just a brute fact of existence. Even back then, that answer didn't satisfy me. And though I did accept it and walk away, it didn't sit well with me. I guess that was actually the earliest inklings of my long journey into atheism. But yeah, if you can insist on God existing as a brute fact of existence, why couldn't the cosmos themselves just exist as a brute fact of existence and then we cut out the middleman of God? It seems the simpler explanation that requires the fewest assumptions, minimizing entities in accordance with Occam's razor. But hey, get all that logic right out of here. But anyway, that was my priest's answer to that question that atheists certainly don't always ask. So what's your answer to it, Ray?
Here's the answer. God is without the dimension of time. We are in time. We have to wait for time to pass. But God dwells in eternity.
So that was a shoddy answer. God exists outside of time, so that's why God didn't need to have a creator. But anyone with even a rudimentary understanding of Big Bang cosmology knows that the general view of physicists is that time started at a specific point about 13.8 billion years ago with the Big Bang, when the entire universe suddenly expanded out of an infinitely hot, infinitely dense singularity, a point where the laws of physics as we understand them simply break down. So then, the singularity that the universe expanded out of existed outside of time up till the Big Bang began. And if existing outside of time means, as you yourself have now claimed, Ray, that God does not need to be created, then that also has to mean that the singularity, and thus the universe that expanded out of it, also did not need to be created. By your own argument, thou art debunked, Ray.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
So here's a question for you, Vanessa. Is your life pleasing to God, or are you doing things that are morally frowned upon by Him?
Well, by your ideology, not believing in God itself is morally wrong and supersedes everything else. So, in your Christian eyes, it wouldn't matter if I was spending my days building shelters for the homeless, tending to the sick and needy, and in every way possible making the lives of those around me better, while also adhering to the 10 Commandments. Not out of devotion to the religion, but simply because I didn't want to do those things. None of that would matter. Just by simply being an atheist, you believe I am living an immoral life that God not only frowns upon, but will condemn me to hell for. So why bother even asking this question? By my assessment, I would say I live as moral a life as I'm able, accounting for not being perfect, as none of us are, of course, but I strive to do and act in ways that comport with my understanding and beliefs about morality. But again, you don't care about how I view morality. You're asking about God's view of morality, which I don't even hold to be a thing since I don't believe in God. So it's just an awkward and, frankly, a silly question. But, that's par for the course and all.
You see, that's why we deny God's existence, because it makes us feel uncomfortable that God sees us. Do you know that God knows how many hairs are on your head? Did you know that? Every single one is known by God. In fact, He knows intimately the middle atom that makes up your eyeball, because He made it. He gave you your brain, your blood, your skin. Everything about you was given to you by God. He gave you the ability to enjoy good music, hearing, the ability to enjoy the blueness of the sky, eyesight, the ability to think, that's your brain.
Everything that guy just said is bullshit. Thank you.
Seriously. Prove just any of that, Ray. You stand in front of this girl with control of the microphone, so she's kind of stuck there listening to you ramble as you throw out bald assertion after bald assertion, offering not only no proof to anything that you're saying, but not even mustering up the faintest bit of an argument to attempt to validate any of it. So if you don't need evidence to assert it, I don't need evidence to dismiss it. You say God created the hairs on my head, the center of my eye, my brain, my blood, my skin, my hearing, my eyesight, my ability to think? Well, no, He didn't. No, He didn't. No. Niet. Negatory. Afraid not.
Negative, Ghost Rider. The pattern is full.
Do you think you're a good person?
Well, I don't randomly verbally accost people on the street and attempt to browbeat them with rhetorically manipulative strategies into ideological positions that they don't agree with. I'm not an intellectually dishonest hack. I'm not perfect, but I try to be the best person I can be and adhere to a consistent standard of honesty and forthright behavior, especially with my ideological opponents. Not everyone out there can say the same, can they, Ray?
I'm going to put it to the test. Can you be honest with me?
Yeah.
How many lies have you told in your life?
I have no idea.
So what do you call someone who tells lies?
A human being with the capacity to communicate.
So what are you?
A human being with the capacity to communicate.
Do you still think you're a good person?
About as much as I did before this question.
Have you ever stolen something in your whole life, even if it's small, irrespective of its value?
Sure, when I was little, sure.
What do you call someone who steals?
A human being with the capacity to desire and act on those desires.
What are you?
A human being with the capacity to desire and act on those desires.
No, you're not. You're a lying thief.
No, this is a prime example of the rhetorical manipulation you use to browbeat people into accepting your fallacious nonsense, Ray. A liar is someone who habitually, intentionally, and flagrantly deceives others, knowing full well the harm their deceptions would cause to others, but continues to do so for their own personal benefit. A thief is someone who intentionally takes what clearly belongs to someone else against that person's express or implicit will, displaying complete disregard for the harm that would cause the original owner. And naturally, the higher value of what is taken greatly increases the severity of the offense and the application of the title of thief. We don't call someone a liar for telling their spouse they look good even though they've noticed they've put on a few pounds. We don't call someone a lying thief when they're 5 and say that they didn't take a cookie from the cookie jar even though they still have the crumbs on their face. We don't call someone a thief for taking 4 pennies out of the take a penny, leave a penny tray in order to give themselves the exact correct change for their purchase. Context matters. Also, these labels, even when applicable, are not permanently applied. One lie told does not make one a liar for the rest of their life. One item taken does not make one a thief for the rest of their life.
Have you ever used God's name in vain?
No. I have never used any iteration of the name of the Abrahamic God in vain. Neither Yahweh, Jehovah, Elohim, or any of the other alternate names for that God figure. And whenever I might say something like, God damn it, or, oh God, what crap are we into now, make no mistake that I'm not referring to your God, Ray, as the word God is a descriptive term and even potentially a title. It is certainly not a name. So if you ever hear me say it, just assume that I mean...
So here's a summation. This is for you to judge yourself. I'm not judging you. But Vanessa, you told me you're a lying thief, a blasphemer, and an adulterer at heart. You have to face God on Judgment Day. If He judges you by those commandments, the 10 commandments, you're going to be innocent or guilty.
Well, as an atheist, I don't believe that there will be a judgment day, nor that I'll be standing in front of any kind of judge after my death. But for the sake of argument, if I find myself in that position, I would imagine that that judge would examine the entirety of my life, all of the acts I partook in, and all of the motivations and contextual considerations behind all of them. And where I fell short, those instances would be understandable and excusable. It would hopefully be determined that I put more good into the world than bad, that the world was slightly better place for my having been in it. And then the judge would say, as an aside, that the 10 Commandments were bullcrap anyway, cooked up by the church in order to compel behavior among its adherents upon promise of eternal punishment for going against them. And I would be given a gold star for not being duped by such nonsense, but still keeping to a consistent moral framework, even without the sword of Damocles that is the promise of eternal hellfire hanging over my head, scaring me into ethical, pro-social behavior. That in fact I genuinely wanted to act positively instead of just being too scared not to. Which the judge would then conclude is actually more laudable than all of those religious fundamentalists who only behaved in some positive ways, and a lot of negative ones too, because they were afraid of God's wrath if they didn't. So, extra brownie points to all the non-believers who still acted better than the fundies. That's what I would imagine would happen on Judgment Day, Ray.
Did that go the way you thought it was going to go? Nope.
So that's about all of Ray that I can take for one day. Because this shtick of his, where he trots out the Ten Commandments and tries to use them to maneuver the other person into telling them how horrible they are and how much they need God's forgiveness, is pretty much all he ever comes with. I mean, between this newish channel of his, which is only about 6 months old, and the many, many times that he's done these same types of videos over on his Living Waters Ministry channel, there are dozens, well, over 100 examples of him doing this exact same line of questioning to many, many people. This approach never changes, and it was tired and played out after the first few times he did it. He seems to think this is some kind of a winning strategy, real mic drop moment, but it really just shows how bereft of worthwhile arguments and conversational tactics he actually is. I mean, let's face it, if the star of Growing Pains hadn't attached his lips to Ray's posterior years ago, Ray Comfort would have vanished into obscurity right after we all finished laughing our collective asses off at his claims about the banana.
Behold the atheist's nightmare. Now, if you study a well-made banana, you'll find on the far side there are 3 ridges. On the close side, 2 ridges. If you get your hand ready to grip a banana, you'll find on the far side there are 3 grooves, on the close side 2 grooves. The banana and the hand are perfectly made one for the other.
So that's where we'll leave Ray Comfort behind for now and in things for today. So thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like this video, comment, and subscribe so you'll always be notified when a new video comes out. Until next time, I'm Professor Plink, reminding you to keep striving for greater understanding. It's the best way to get wherever you want to go.